Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's Space Engineers Plus Me, episode 25. I'm Enigmaeus, and today we're building a new ship. Wasn't supposed to be a new ship today, but we ended up with one. This is going to be a mobile mining frame, similar to what we've been doing with the other mining frames, except mobile. That was the whole idea. We went through the whole evolution of the thought process from having a fully mobile, fully assembled mining frame, and that didn't work because as soon as you release it from its locks, the pistons all fall apart. So we went with the stationary mining frame that wouldn't allow the pistons to fall apart. And of course, with that kind of setup, if you're going to get any kind of use out of it, you build it in one spot, and then when it's done, you disassemble it, and then you move it and you build it in another spot. And then I realized, since we're disassembling the drill head and we're disassembling all of the pistons, the parts that were causing the problems, then that kind of frees us up to make a mobile platform that will hang on to those pistons and drill heads when it's locked in place and stationary. And then before you go to move it, you dismantle the pistons and the drill head, and then you move it. You don't have to worry about things falling apart and breaking. It's kind of the trade-off. It's taking the things that didn't work and narrowing it down so then we're not doing any more work than is absolutely necessary. And if you're talking about building the drill head from blueprints, reassembly and even dismantling doesn't take very long at all. I've learned this from first-hand experience, dismantling some of the other things that we've already built, especially with a ship with a grinder on it. The drill head isn't that big. It doesn't take long to pull apart. So the whole idea now is to come up with something that does everything that our most up-to-date stationary mining platform can do, plus allowing it to move, and then we'll be able to offer the blueprint for that alongside the blueprint for the drill head, and people can take advantage of the best of both worlds. That's the whole idea. And then as I was kind of putting together in my head how this whole thing was going to look, for some reason it just started looking like a praying mantis in my head. And I thought, well, that's not a bad name for a ship, but we can also change the colors so that it looks even more like a praying mantis, and then that will be just terrifying. So we changed it. It's a lime green and a slightly less limey lime green for the body. And it's just basically going around and putting in everything that we had in the other one. So we've got containers for storage. We've got a power plant. In this case, we're using the large reactor because we're going to have thrusters on here. We're going to need extra power for those thrusters. 2 large storage containers, I think, is plenty for what we're ultimately going to end up doing with this thing. That's what we had on the other stationary platforms. And the whole idea is you're still going to be able to dock with this ship. So you'll be able to land ships on this ship, extract all of the ore that you've been mining, take it somewhere else for processing, and then keep the containers empty that way. I don't know if we're going to have enough thrusters on this ship to move it around when the storage containers are full or nearly full. I think the whole idea is that you'll want to keep them mostly empty, especially when moving it around, so that you don't have any catastrophic failures along the way. Now, one of the things that we built into our most recent iteration of the stationary mining platform was waste handling. All of the stone that we accumulated passed through conveyor sorters that say we only want stone to pass through here, and then fed to connectors that eject them. And then after a certain number have been ejected, they start to despawn. You don't have the problem with stone building up in your storage containers, causing problems, preventing you from being able to store ore. It's a pretty effective solution, I guess you could say. It's not ideal. I don't like the idea, especially in a game that is occasionally prone to performance issues, to just start spawning in extra entities for the sake of letting them despawn when you reach a certain maximum entities in the world. It's not perfect, but in lieu of anything better, it's kind of what we've got. So you can see here, we're putting them in place. We've got conveyor blocks, and we're attaching the connectors to the conveyor blocks. We'll weld them all up. Life will be good. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. It'll give us a total of 12 connectors. We had 15 on the other stationary platform. It had no trouble whatsoever keeping up with the stone that we were getting from the drills when we were mining. And it also did a pretty good job of emptying 2 cargo containers full of stone that we started with, courtesy of the blueprint system. I'm putting batteries on this as well. There's going to be a total of 12 batteries. The idea being that anytime you've got something that flies and is based on power from a reactor, it's not a bad idea to have a backup power supply in case you're kind of midair or on the move somewhere and suddenly the reactor runs out of uranium or something. Not a bad idea to have some backup. In addition, we've got connectors going on the top. This is because we're going to be able to dock on the back of the praying mantis. I put 2 connectors on, one for each storage container, because the storage container port was right there. I don't really think it's necessarily that practical, and it's certainly not necessary to have 2. But in this case, I went with 2 just because. I mean, it's not really that expensive to put an extra connector on, and it gives a little bit of leeway. If you had a couple of really narrow cargo ships, I don't know, you could dock them both at the same time. There could be worse things to happen than to have 2 connectors on the back of the ship that's going to be holding all of your ore. And then once we've put a bunch of things on the ship, then we can grab our construction ship and go around and weld it all. It's actually, I find it really fun to do this with the cargo ship and the welding and, welding 4 blocks at a time kind of thing. It's a little bit relaxing. It's nice to see things kind of coming together. You've done all the layout, you've placed all the frames, and now you come back and you use up all of this inventory space worth of materials, welding it up, that you don't have to worry about running back and forth with your personal inventory to restock. It's kind of a good deal. We had to process some more stone to make gravel so we could make the rest of the reactor components to finish off the reactor. I don't think we're going to need more than 1 large reactor for this ship. I think we'll be okay with what we've got. We don't have enough power cells to completely weld up all the batteries, but we can still partially weld them with the other materials we do have. And then that's space that we don't have to worry about in the construction ship, so that at nighttime we can come and do a little stealth run to steal engines off of one of our own ships. I didn't intentionally have this happen at nighttime. It just happened to be night, and I realized it was kind of amusing in my own feeble mind to be here in the pitch black stealing engines off of the ship. The Blue Behemoth is basically rapidly becoming obsolete. We got rid of the ground unit a long time ago. The air unit served its purpose up to a point. It has the onboard refining, assembling, and storage capacity that we were looking for in a mobile kind of logistics ship. But we're building a ship right next to it that's going to have all of these things, only more. And it only makes sense that once we start transferring things over into the larger ship with the expanded capacity to do all of these things, that the Blue Behemoth would be basically dismantled. So that's why I'm not really too worried about pulling apart the engines in the dead of night and transferring them over here onto the Mantid. I'm not sure if I want to call it the Mantis or the Mantid. Apparently a Mantid is just a larger mantis. That's apparently what the word means. But it might not be as recognizable as Mantis. We'll see. We'll see how the video comes out, what name I choose in the title. And if we've got now 2 forward thrusters, we need some lift thrusters, we need side to side. And before we got to do any of that, we took a break, we came back, we loaded up the game, and guess what? The landing gear on the front released temporarily, dropped the whole ship on its ass, broke off a bunch of landing gears. You can see the damage done to the back end, the divot in the ice from the collision. There's a divot underneath all the areas where the landing gears broke off. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but at the same time, nothing that was expensive was destroyed. If we had lost the reactor, I might have been a little bit more upset, but I to be completely honest, I kind of like this mechanic. This whole, blocks are damaged and you have to go around and weld them up and then assess what was actually destroyed, replace that, and then in our case, we have to jack up the whole hull again because it's sagging, and if we don't, first of all, we're not going to be able to finish off the back end because it's too low, but also we run the risk when we start the whole thing up, when we release that front landing gear on purpose, that the whole ship just slips backward and rams into the ice again. We definitely don't want that. So we want it starting off as close to level as we possibly can when we intentionally release the landing gear for the first time, and then that way we can go around, we can grind off the temporary landing gear that we started with, make sure everything else is squared away and in place so that we can land properly, and life is good. It'd be a successful release for the ship. We don't want any catastrophes. First thing we do when we release it is it just smashes into the ground. So it takes a little while, finding all the blocks that were damaged, welding them up, And then we only lost a handful of armor blocks, which is not horrible. We've got so much iron, so very much iron. Steel plates to make replacement armor blocks is not an issue at all. The issue, if anything, is making the steel plates fast enough without taking away construction time for other components that we might need. Is steel plates I make 10, 20,000 at a time, and it just takes a while. So I'm looking forward to getting into a larger space where we can have more than one assembler. You can say it's not that bad. It could be a lot worse. But in order to correct the hull and the saggy business from the released landing gear on the front, same as we did with the other one. Put in a piston, put some light armor block frames underneath the piston, extend the piston, and then that will hopefully lift everything up and put everything level so that we can go around and make the necessary repairs. Now, I would have liked to show you the process because I always think that's kind of neat when it's, the piston's extending and you can see the hull lifting. But I didn't have a control seat when I originally set this up, so I couldn't switch to the third-person view and watch it. I only had a little control panel that I stuck on a cube. And I forgot to turn off the piston when I set its speed. So it slowly extended and did what it was supposed to do without me really thinking about it. By the time I got the control seat on, hopped into the control seat, changed the view, spin it around, piston was already extended. The whole thing was already lifted up. So oops. I was hoping to do something a little more interesting, but it's already done. There's no point undoing it and then doing it again. But you can see I did the huge arch, right? I did that whole ellipse. That front part is going to go away. So it's going to be just like the mining frames we already have. It's just going to go up as far as it needs to go to connect to the pistons, which will go down to the mining head. That other half going towards the front is going to be removed before it's all said and done because it's just kind of silly. It was one of the things that I put on when I was just kind of testing it out in my head, and then I realized with the way everything was working out that it would probably be a hell of a lot easier without that, particularly when you're talking about flying around and even on a lake. There are ore deposits, the splotchy bit on the ice that you can tell there's an ore deposit under there that are right next to the shore, and then the shore terrain gets kind of bumpy, a little bit rough. Having that extra little bit off to the front would make getting close enough to get good traction, I guess you could say, in that ore deposit without having that far arm in the rough terrain lifting things up where we don't want it to be lifted. Kind of a pain in the butt. So we're going to get rid of it. And it's not necessarily all that great looking either. So it's going to help the whole Mantis appearance when we've got the green arm sticking up, and then it'll be the pistons and the bore head sticking down the last half of the leg. Stealing more parts from the Blue Behemoth so that we can weld up the necessary atmospheric thrusters on the Mantis. Really, we're just about there. The one thing that I haven't put onto this thing that will be going on before it gets turned into a blueprint is an ore detector. That's one thing I don't have on there. Would be very, very handy. It seems kind of silly to have one ship with an ore detector go and do the prospecting, find out what minerals are where, and then have another ship follow along and set up to start the mining, when you can just stick an ore detector on the one and have it cruise around on the surface of the lake, find out what's where, and then decide what you want to start on first. So we'll have that. We'll have 4 gyroscopes on it that'll be added before we're all done the construction here. And then really, as long as it moves around okay and stores the ore and ejects the stone and does all the things we need it to do, it's, I think, a far superior option to the stationary mining frames, because it's doing the exact same thing, only it can move. It's basically what it boils down to. So you can see we've got some engines on there. It'll be a total of 6 lift thrusters, 2 forward motion, 2 reverse thrusters, and 1 on either side for the side-to-side motion, which it's a very large ship, but it's not super heavy. You can see here we're putting the reverse thrusters up here. I kind of wanted to, if we're going to call it the Mantis, it made sense a little bit to me to have sort of like the head up here somewhere. So the thrusters are like the big beady eyes that a Mantis has. You can use your imagination. It's not supposed to be a perfect analog, but it's not bad. It could be a lot worse as these things go. So now we're finally done to the point where we can look at releasing. And if we've done our job and we release that front landing gear, we should be able to lift the whole thing off the ground, grind off the front landing gear, grind off the piston on the back, move the ship around, set it down somewhere, lock it in position, and be good to go. So you can see we released it and nothing catastrophic happened. We're actually able to lift it off the ground a little bit. So we hop out, we grind this guy off, get rid of him. And like I say, this whole front side of the ellipse, the half ellipse that we did, is going to be ground off. But for now, we're just going to kind of get some of it off. And then we'll pull the piston off the back side. And we'll move it around. We'll see how it goes. I kind of expect... I haven't really done a lot of rotating with it, turning, trying to do anything like that, but I kind of expect it's going to have the maneuverability of a pregnant whale. That having been said, again, it's flying over flat terrain on ice lakes and not really doing a whole lot of low-level maneuvering over rough terrain, so I don't really need it to be super maneuverable. I just need to be able to go where I need to go and set down safely. As you can see here, we'll try that. We'll try the going where we need to go and setting down safely. Get a little more altitude, and off it goes. I want to try, because I've received conflicting information. I've had more than one person say that if you can drill deep below a nickel deposit in a frozen lake, you will often find platinum. And I've also been told that platinum is a hard-coded exception that cannot be spawned on planets. You'll never find it on planets. So the only way to find out is to set up a drill over a nickel deposit and punch down as far as we can go with the drill head and see what we find. Because we're also going to have an ore detector on the drill head, so we'll get kind of a reading a little bit deeper down than we would if we just had the ore detector on the main hull of the ship. It's not fast. You might be able to see the resemblance to a mantis already. By the time we get that last part of the ellipse off the front there taken off, it might look even more like a mantis. The main thing, whether it looks like a mantis or not, is that it drills like a bastard once we get the pistons and the drill head on it. So that's kind of the thing. That's what we've been doing. Not because I want to put off construction of our To the Moon ship, but because it seemed important with all the work that we were doing and me promising blueprints for the drill heads and the stationary rig to get this done as soon as I thought of it, and then we'll get back to the Moon ship very, very soon. Next episode, what we're going to do is take a very brief look at the features on the Mantis and on the drill head, and then show you how to assemble it from blueprints, because you're going to have to assemble the Mantis from blueprints first. Then you have to add the pistons, then you assemble the drill head from the blueprints, just to help people out get started if they haven't used blueprints before, or if they're not sure how to get everything together. I don't want it to be a super long video, but this is definitely something where a little bit of information and instruction seems like it would be worthwhile. So that's what you can look forward to in the next episode. And the episode after that, we'll be back on the ship that we're using to get to the moon, and hopefully we'll see some serious progress on that. So if you want to be notified when I add the next episode, as always, you can subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on social media. Links for social media are in the information box below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.